Today, we're joined by George Birch from Oyster Heaven and Lisa Bolton from Purina Europe. They're leading the UK's biggest oyster reef restoration project on the Norfolk coast. 4 million oysters will be introduced to the sea to help clean the water and bring back sea life. Let's find out more. Just to inform you guys, the first set of 5 questions will be directed at George, then Lisa, and then the final 5 questions are for both of you to answer.
Wonderful, thank you.
George, what exactly is an oyster reef and why is it so important for the sea? Thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me. So, oysters are secretly really fantastic creatures. And just over 150 years ago, actually a huge amount of the North Sea used to be absolutely full of them. The Dutch North Sea was 20 to 30% oyster reefs and probably a similar amount for the rest of the Northern European countries. They were absolutely prolific. And we basically lost them all because we ate them to virtual extinction. They were the most common form of marine protein at one point. But that's not just a loss for our restaurants and, our dinner table. It's actually a really practical loss as well. One oyster can filter 200 litres of water per day. They are the most effective filtration systems known to humanity. And so it's not hard to imagine how trillions of oysters a few hundred years ago were making the North Sea really quite clear at certain times of the year. They're also home to legions of very exciting fish, many of which end up on our dinner tables or indeed on our pets' plates. And so they form these really important 3D complex reefs. And you can imagine them like coral reefs. It's just, if coral was edible, you'd probably not see very much of it now, just like you don't see very many oyster reefs.
Wow, that's fascinating. Thank you for going into depth with that. Now, you mentioned there that an oyster can actually filter 200 litres of water. How exactly does it do that?
So an oyster is like a little jet. It has a jet system inside it, and it pumps water across a set of gills. And these gills are pulling out microscopic particles of food, which is mainly algae. And so when you have lots of nitrogen nutrients in the water, which causes algal blooms, this is basically oysters' food. And any sediment, so any inorganic particles, it tastes it and it doesn't like it, and it releases it as pseudofeces, which become part of the sediment. So it has this incredible clearing potential for the water.
Wow, that's amazing that it can filter so much. So I can see if you probably left them in the water for about 2 years maybe, or 3 years, they probably have maybe cleared the entire ocean.
Yeah, definitely. If you get a lot of them together, they start doing some really impressive things. But we'll see exactly what happens as the project develops.
Well, that's wonderful that you are doing such an amazing thing. You've created something called mother reefs. What exactly are they, and how do they help young oysters grow?
So oysters, unlike clams or scallops, are not mobile. They can't move through the sediment or the water. And so if they're loose and left on the mud and sand, they will just drown. So what you need to do is you provide them a hard surface to settle on, and this is the clay mother reef. The reason it's made from clay is because it's a natural material. It's the most abundant material on the surface of the planet. And when you fire it at lower temperatures, it erodes in the water over a predictable period of time. So the scaffolding for the oysters to form these 3D reefs is just temporary, and it melts away into the background. Using clay as well means that we can work with organizations like our partners locally, the Norfolk Seaweed Company, using their pretty normal fishing boats and work boats to put these into the water. So it means that all of our reefs are buildable by local coastal communities and fishing communities, which is another huge benefit to the local economy. And otherwise, they're having difficult times with things like fuel prices and quota restrictions. So finding new work for these groups to do is a really exciting extra benefit.
fascinating there. So it's really you're trying to kind of do a bit of both, filter the water and also give them a stable habitat as well. Now, Lisa, why is Purina helping with this project? What role does your company play? I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, that Purina is the cat food brand.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we make pet food. We make dog and cat food. And as I'm sure many of your listeners are pet owners, they know cats, dogs love fish in their in their products. And the fish that we use is actually very sustainable. So we use the parts of the fish that humans tend to not want to eat. It's healthy, it's tasty for the pets, and it's full of nutrients. And so we take these parts of the fish, we put them in our products, and it's important for us to make sure that we can continue doing that, continue to provide healthy, nutritious ingredients for pets in the future. The problem is that a lot of these fish species are under pressure because they've lost a lot of these habitats. In general, biodiversity species in the ocean are suffering because of climate change, because of pollution, acidification, and we can help them by bringing back these habitats.
So it's great to hear that pet food is being used sustainably and nothing is going to waste. You've set a goal of restoring the size of 3,700 football pitches of marine habitat by 2030. Why is this scale so important in the ocean restoration?
It is quite an ambitious target. So a lot of restoration projects are quite small scale, usually focused just on one species in one area. But what we've done is we've launched this program across the whole of the area where we source our fish byproducts. So our UK Oyster Project is our first pilot project in the UK, but we've also got seagrass restoration and kelp forest restoration happening in Norway, in Netherlands, France, and Portugal. And what we're trying to do is to make the biggest impact we can by targeting many different species across many different locations that can hopefully boost all of these, the different fish species, and help in the areas where they're needed. So in some cases, it's seaweed that's been lost. And in the case today, we're focusing on oyster reefs. But what we'd like to do in the future is see how we can tackle that whole ecosystem. So look at bringing in multiple species and how they can help each other as well. So if we've got oysters who are clearing the water, then that could help also with restoring other species in that area, like seagrass.
That's wonderful to think that you're doing so much to help the underwater life and habitat. How does working with the local people like Norfolk Seaweed help the project succeed? Is it just a matter of they will try and stop people from doing underwater exploration that might damage coral reefs or fishing or such things like that? Or is it more on a different scale?
It's really important to have the local communities involved and engaged and understanding the reason behind the work that we're doing. The local communities, obviously, they're the most connected to this environment. They understand the environment. We need their support to be able to ensure that it's protected in the future. We also would really love long term to get more local involvement, being able to track the success, being able to see what are the other benefits that are coming, like coastal protection and improvements in tourism, and that knock-on effect as well, to be able to measure the impact across the area when it comes to the boost, hopefully that boost to the local species. And from our part as well, we hope to be able to then offer new opportunities, or at least to show particularly young people that there are careers that are available in ocean conservation and ocean restoration.
You mentioned there about the careers, and I think that's very important to empower more children to think about their ecosystem and about what, well, they're still young now, but the little changes they make, like recycling, not littering, things like that, they will contribute to a healthier future. So that's very important there. What difference will the people in Norfolk actually see or notice once the reefs are working well?
So George, maybe I let you speak to the long-term benefits.
Yeah.
But what we're hoping is that the initial Restoration of this first site will continue to expand over the years to come, and we'll be looking at monitoring and understanding the impact that that's having on local biodiversity. And George can talk in a bit more detail about how we'll measure and monitor that.
So there are a lot of scientific methods that we're going to be using to do the monitoring, looking at things like eDNA, satellite, bathymetry, radar, 3D modeling. And that's going to be pulling out a huge amount of data, which is really interesting for us in the scientific community. But actually, I think if you're talking about what are the individuals going to notice, the closer we can get these reefs to the shoreline, hopefully you're going to start noticing the water quality improving. Obviously, the North Norfolk coastline has not always had the easiest time with bathing water quality. So hopefully you can see as the beaches improve, water quality improves, tourism gets more exciting. You can start going scuba diving maybe to see the oyster reefs rather than flying over to Egypt to see the coral reefs there. We'll also if you're thinking about species of birds, many of them, such as the oyster catcher, which are again not a species that are doing particularly well at the moment, source their food from these types of reefs as well. So as the biodiversity improves underwater, there's a huge amount of connectivity with it on land. And so you should start be able to see the difference, and maybe even things like seals coming up on the beaches more frequently because there's more food around for them.
Well, it's brilliant to know that these huge changes, and as well bringing tourism, like you said, closer to home, as the to help the economy as well. So if people fly over from maybe the States to see our wonderful coral reefs in Norfolk, that'll be really important. Now, for both of you, why were oysters chosen for this project instead of another type of sea animal? Is it because there weren't enough in that particular area, or just because of their benefits to the water?
Maybe I can just explain a little bit from the Purina side why we decided to partner with Oyster Heaven. I mean, we were shocked by the story of the loss of oysters, just the scale of the loss and the need to restore these native species within the UK waters. But it's also linked in with, first of all, the biodiversity benefits, but also in terms of the impact from our footprint on land. So one of the things we're trying to do within our agriculture supply is to reduce the amount of fertilizers. But while we're doing that on land, we also want to see how we can help to reduce the impact in the ocean, already in the sea, by using oysters directly there. And one of the things that we loved about the Oyster Heaven model was just how scalable, how natural the solution is, and how well they're able to work with the local communities.
Yeah, thank you. I'd agree with all of those points. Maybe the only thing for me to add, North Norfolk has an incredibly rich tradition with oysters, and there are these amazing maps and photographs of historic reefs. So if you're talking about where should we be putting in oysters, what are these historic habitats, North Norfolk is a really great place to start. And just on a personal level, my family's from Lincolnshire. My mum and my grandfather grew up in Norfolk, and we spent every single summer holiday since I was about 0 years old there. So I have a sort of secret personal mission on the background, which is I want to see and I want to work on the places where I've got these very nostalgic memories.
Those are wonderful reasons to use oysters instead of others. Now, here's probably the $1,000,000 question. What are the biggest challenges you face in restoring the oyster reefs?
Maybe I can go from the sort of practical side. The oyster infrastructure that we have all over Europe is just still a very early industry. But we've got great ideas from both what's going on in the US and Australia, where they're doing restoration at really quite an interesting scale already, but also other industries like salmon aquaculture. There's amazing technology and ideas out there that we need to bring to bear on this, because there definitely is a lot of risk in the supply chain at the moment. But this is also a huge opportunity for us with the scale of this project to help be investing in this system and make it more robust for the future.
And I think from our side, I mean, we see it across the board with all the different restoration projects. The complexity of working in the marine environment versus restoring habitats on land, it's just incredible. And I think the complexity, the cost, the risk, it's made it very difficult. And this is why we don't see many other organisations really working at this scale and trying to restore at this scale. But we've got some fantastic partners, and the aim is to try and develop these solutions so they are cost effective and scalable, and they can be rolled out at a really sort of meaningful size, across UK, across Europe, and continue to hopefully bring others along with us.
Sadly, we are coming to the end of this very intriguing interview. But first, I have one last question. If you could describe the future ocean you want children today to grow up with, what would it look like?
So for me, the idea that the North Sea used to be quite clear at certain times of the year, and it was just heaving with marine life. There are accounts in this book called The Unnatural History of the Sea, where they said that schools of herring were so thick that you could walk across them. And I think we've got documentaries like David Attenborough's Oceans now, where people are going all over the world to see these incredible migrations and huge schools of fish. It would be beautiful to be able to see that just in our backyards on the Norfolk coastline. So my hope is that one day we can see something as impressive as what's going on at the tuna migrations going on the beaches that I used to grow up on.
And I think what's wonderful about the marine environment is its ability to bounce back once you've removed some of these pressures, once you've given it that helping hand to get started. It can actually rebound very quickly. And so I would love to see this first pilot being expanded to many more sites and integrated with bringing in other species, and then all of, as George explained, all of the other wildlife that comes with it, both under the water and above as well.
Very beautiful envisions there, and I sincerely hope that those will come true in the future. Thank you, George and Lisa. So that was George from Oyster Heaven and Lisa from Purina. Thank you very much both for joining us today. It's amazing to hear how oysters can help bring the sea back to life. We'll keep an eye on how the reefs in Norfolk grow over the next few years. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks, hello. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.